Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm just a casual racer, and today I'm going to be showing you how to get the maximum amount of detail out of Assetto Corsa Evo's force feedback settings if you're using a Fanatec CSL DD wheelbase. This might also be useful if you're using another type of direct drive wheelbase, and of course these should be pretty applicable whether you're using the 5 Nm or the 8 Nm version of the CSL DD with that boost pack or not. And I'll give some pointers if you're using just a 5 Nm that I think will help and avoid some clipping. So let's jump in, and I'm going to walk you through first my Fanatec settings. I keep them real simple. I know some people like to mess around with them. I don't like diving into my force feedback settings and changing them all the time between games and things like that. I like to set and forget. And so I really like the fact they have the auto setup option. That's what I leave selected. And then I have, the boost packs. We get 8 Nm. Force, the sensitivity is on automatic. Force feedback gain. Strength is at 100%, and the natural damper at 50%. And I just leave this. I don't adjust this for any game. So now that that's been handled, because people always ask me, what you doing? And when I say default, I truly mean I just leave that alone. But you can still draw out a ton of detail in games, especially like this one here, with the settings provided within the game. Now, we aren't going for necessarily the smoothest force feedback. I'm going for the most detail I can extract. So it is going to be a little more punchy. It's going to be a little more raw. But I like that, and I think a lot of people like that. So that's what I'm going to be going for here. Steering lock at 1080, not too complicated. If your wheelbase can't go up to 1080, you're going to want to reduce that to whatever your wheelbase can do. Force feedback gain, I have that at 80%. If you didn't have the boost pack, you might consider dropping it at 75. That's what I would set it, maybe even 70, just to help avoid any clipping. That would be my kind of point of feedback. This could also be reduced if you kind of feel like this is quite a lot, but maybe you don't want to reduce the detail in comparison to the strength of the wheel, and you just want to reduce the entire overall forces you're feeling, both detail and of how hard it is to turn the wheel. You could turn this down as well. You're going to 75%, 70%, something like that. Dynamic damping. This is an interesting one. I played around a lot with it. I have it at 40%. There does seem to be an effect. I noticed it on curbs and a few things like that, but overall, not a huge effect, I think, because even when you increase it, it is a dynamic effect. So and I'm not 100% sure how. What does that mean? How is it being dynamic? But my assumption, and also based on just testing, is that the damping only applies as it's needed. So if you increase the amount and it's being applied as needed, you see what I'm saying? Does that mean it's just slightly more, or is it just mean you got more able to be applied? I don't fully understand. Is this like a cap on how far that dynamic damping can be applied, and then this is like as max it will go? Or is this the percentage of like how much would be applied at any point? I'm not really clear on that. To me, most force feedback guides so far that have put out for ACE have actually had this at 40%. And to me, that seemed pretty good. 40%, 50%, couldn't tell a huge difference there. I think 40% is just fine here. We get to the minimum damper and damper gain, and this is one where I differ quite a bit from some of the other guides. Direct drive wheelbases, in my opinion, when I'm going for maximum detail, don't need damping. You're going to go a minimum damper gain 0%. We are getting that damping out. We want the raw detail. True force gain, leave that 100%. It actually does have, I think, a slight effect even on like a Fanatec wheelbase. I imagine it'd be a lot more impressive on like a Logitech direct drive wheelbase that supports it, but I think it does add a little bit of vibration effects. Maybe I'm losing my mind. It's certainly not a lot, but you're totally fine leaving that 100%. Speed sensitivity, this does a lot. This actually has a big impact. Along with the vibrations, you are going to notice curbs and details and things like that. My recommendation is if the details feel a bit too much, then I would recommend backing these down a bit before you start applying the damper. Now, that's if you want damping, then look at someone else's guide. I'm saying if it's just a little too raw, back these off. Back these down to 95, 95, 90, and 90. I think backing them off together as well is a good way of doing that and achieving removing a bit of the rough edges. And I'm not going to say it's that rough. Like, this is not going to be jerking around in your hands. But we've removed the steering filter. That goes down to 0%. And we don't want any steering assist weight. That was one of the first things I removed, and in my opinion, really screws up the force feedback. Move that down to 0%. You're going to actually feel the forces reacting. There's not some artificial weight being added that interferes with how the force feedback should feel. So this is very critical. The steering assist weight needs to be 0%. I think is one of the most important things, as well as also going for that rawness. We got to get that damper out of there. And then let's crank it up. I was messing around with this at 50%, 70%. In my opinion, if you just want those details, crank this up, make sure the vibration stayed 100%, and you're going to get that. This settings right here, along with kind of just the default Fanatec auto settings, is going to give you a really, really good, really, really enjoyable driving experience in the game. And you're just going to get, going over curbs, you just get a great feeling, you get a great sense of where the car is, you get a lot of road detail. It really is a solid driving experience, a solid and immersive force feedback experience in my opinion. And I've heard a few people complain that they couldn't get a very good force feedback experience this first day, and to me that's a bit of nonsense. I think one of the best things right now in Assetto Corsa Evo looks, optimization, maybe the audio quality. There's some things I think that definitely need a lot of work. I think the force feedback is really, really good. You just have to set it up and get it to where you want to pull out some of those raw details so you can feel what the car is doing, so you can have an immersive experience, and you can have some really great force feedback in Assetto Corsa Evo with the Fanatec CSL DD direct drive wheelbase. So hopefully those settings were helpful. Hopefully, if you found them to be helpful, or if you have some suggestions of your own, please comment down below. But most of all, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week.